Apollonian fundamentally is based on the logic of humans. It is based on the things that we can build ourselves and not relying on our nature, rather relying on our heads, whereas Dionysian is about the emotions. It's about chemicals, things that are natural to humans, things that we're used to, things that we are intrinsically built with. It is about embracing the tools that we've been given at first, whereas Apollonian is about building your own person. It is about building your own ideal human through your own will, through your own volition, rather than simply relying on the chemicals that are given to you at present. Now, these two types, they're for two very different people. I don't think there are many Apollonian people out there, at least not people who are fully Apollonian. Most people have at least a little bit of Dionysian in them because they haven't gone fully no longer human. And so, what I want to explain with this vlog is just the appeal of becoming Apollonian. Why would you want to do that? And to me, the main reason why is that you don't have to rely on others in order to find pleasure in your life. Because what is a life but simply a way to get a purpose and to get a goal to work after, to give you something that you're constantly getting pleasure from, to give you something that you're working towards to gain a higher sense of pleasure rather than, just the fucking day-to-day bullshit. Because people who are Dionysian, that's what they care about. They care about the day-to-day bullshit and then they die. And whereas people who are Apollonian, they're not so satisfied by things of that nature. They need something a bit heavier, a bit cooler and bigger. And so their pleasure ends up being more worthwhile in the end because they had to go through arduous struggle in order to achieve it. They had to work hard in order to build something that they could sincerely look at and say, wow, I like that. Wow, I appreciate that. Wow, this is a thing that I can call mine. And so who are Apollonian, they rely on that logic, they rely on that internal self that they're building through that logic. They take that, and then what they do is that they take the materials around them, nature, etc., and then they just build off of that in their own little hut. And then from there on, what they do is they're constantly working on themselves and working on their own goals, working on the things that they want to build, to find purpose in, to appreciate, to love of themselves, to sit there and say, I built this thing that I'm proud of, and I was able to work hard enough to build the ideal self, to build, the ideal invention that I've, basically exerted my will. And there's a greater sense of pleasure in that because the work that it actually took to gain that is the fulfilling part, that you're fulfilled for working so hard and you're fulfilled for constantly trying to outdo yourself. You're fulfilled for inventing a thing. You're fulfilled for making a craft, for dedicating your life to a craft, whereas others are simply relying on the tools that nature have given to you. I'm gonna have sex. I'm gonna, talk to people to get strength from other men, or to get protection from other men, excuse me, to, fucking build my reproduction camp, then keep the earth going, eat food to continue reproducing, and then die. There's no inventing in that. There's no long-term goals in that. The only long-term goal is to make sure your wife doesn't fucking get sick. Like, that's the only thing Dionysian people care about. And sure, it may seem pleasurable in the moment, but and even long-term fulfilling because you're building new kids, that's your purpose. But Apollonian people, they get a far greater sense of pleasure and of purpose because they don't have to rely on others for it, and because they are simply relying on their own work, and the work is much more difficult and arduous. And it's easier guaranteed as well, because even though the work is difficult, you don't have to rely on other people, because the nature of being emotional also makes you feeble. It makes you weak. Because if you have these emotional qualities, then you're probably being controlled by them. you're probably letting your chemicals from the day-to-day succeed logic, you know? And so from that point, your relationships become more unstable because you're letting your emotions decide all the decisions that you make. And then from there on, you end up being less reliable. And so, can you truly rely on people to do the things that you want them to do, to go through with the things that are valuable within your group? You can't always. People are going to mess up. They're going to make a mistake somewhere. They're going to get emotional based on the traumas within their life and based on the things that have inevitably brought them here in their upbringing. And then those emotions will trigger an onset of other reactions within the group that ends up making the group more unstable. So when you rely on this group of other people, you end up becoming more weak as a result because you are pigeonholing yourself into a group of chaotic individuals, all with their own Dionysian elements, all with their own individual traumas, all with their own things in their mind. That's not good. The only person you can rely on is yourself. You can rely on yourself to have the strength from other people. You can rely on yourself to build the things that are your purpose. But you can't always rely on other people to go through this world with you. That's where it's dangerous. That's where the risk is. And so, Apollonian is the most appealing one, because then you have no inconsistent elements. You have no people that can just jump out the window if they want and then mess up the structure of your whole group, break down the balance. No, it's just you. You're the only one you're in charge of. Your happiness is the only thing you're in charge of. And if you apply the right logic to it, you can eventually achieve that. You can achieve that through work. But what you can't rely on is others doing the same amount of work as you're doing for the collective success of the entire group. That's just not something that's tangible. So Apollonian is more appealing because you don't have to rely on other individuals. The only individual you're relying on is yourself. You can trust yourself more than you can trust other people because you understand yourself more than you understand other people. And most people probably don't understand themselves as much as you do because they're not reading philosophy.